Life is full of challenges. How to live, how to love, how to retrieve an email you've accidentally sent your estate agent calling them a bad word. But where there are problems, there are great minds in search of solutions. Join us to trace human ingenuity as it turns the troubles of the past into the technology of the present and the fearsome cyborg overlords of the future. The scene, our world. The time, now. And the air is filled with love. Love. It has launched 1,000 ships, heaved 1,000,000 sighs, and paid for Richard Curtis to install an underground swimming pool tiled with platinum and filled with bitcoins. Love, mysterious love, was Google's third most searched for what is question of 2014, just behind what is the nature of God and what is peri-peri sauce. Is it a beautiful union of pure souls or a stinking biological con-trick? Join us as we investigate how to define it and how to find it. From the BBC Problematorium, it's Big Problems with Helen Keen!
Hello. So, this episode's problem is romantic love like a thing or not? I'm single at the moment, which is my choice. Also, as it turns out, everyone else I've ever met's choice too. It's a big question for all of us. Do I find a mate, or should I just not bother and use the time I save to catch up on emails? Can technology help identify the perfect partner, or reprogram me to become the perfect partner? Also, bonus option, in the future, will people do it with robots? And helping me to decide whether my life should be a sterile, empty desert through which the winds of loneliness howl, or whether I should just avoid long-term relationships altogether. It's the voice of doom!
Hello! What's that sound?
I don't think I can hear anything.
It's a sort of dry, plasticky, scrunching noise, like the air being sucked out of an empty salt and vinegar crisp packet. Oh, I know. It's your lady insides are shriveling because you've left it too late to find a husband.
Yes, that's right. I'm at that awkward for everyone else age where, as a heterosexual woman, complete strangers feel able to ask me about my plans for marriage or children, or just roll their eyes and tell me I need to get a move on.
So, Helen, is there a special man?
No, there's just lots of very ordinary men.
Now, the urge to pair up, mate, and maybe pass on your genes can be found across the animal kingdom. But unique to human beings is the urge to spend Sunday afternoon arguing in Ikea.
When Central North American prairie voles mate, a powerful bond is formed. And vole couples go on to share nest building and parental responsibilities for all eternity. Well, the rest of their lives, probably about a year tops. They're quite little.
However, when Southeast Asian coin spiders mate, afterwards the male will gnaw off his own genitals in an angry huff, then pick fights with other males, while the female he's just done it with tries to hunt, kill, and eat him. Which of us is to say who has the right idea?
Now, I spent my early 20s being dizzily in love with someone who, it turned out, wasn't that fussed about me. And then, the remainder of my 20s, a hopeless, sobbing wreck who couldn't believe my lost love had chosen to be with someone who'd never seen Clash of the Titans, and was like, Jason and the Who? So, the list of things that apparently all normal adults can manage, but I can't, now reads: I can't ride a bicycle, can't drive a car, I can't watch The Exorcist without having to go and stay at a friend's house, and now also, I can't get a partner. And I'm beginning to wonder if it's possible that this whole love thing is just something that we've made up.
American psychologist Jonathan Haidt has argued that if true love is defined as eternal passion, it is biologically impossible.
But it seems like everyone's bought into this idea. Even people who don't believe in a soul still believe in a soulmate.
But is there any evidence at all that there's someone for everyone? And if so, has it been peer-reviewed? Most humans seem to be at the prairie vole end of the relationship spectrum, hoping to find a mate for life, or at the very least for many years, until the day comes when they finally have the satisfaction of getting that floor-to-ceiling tropical fish tank after the other one has died.
For early communities, it was pretty much a case of pairing off with whoever was willing, able, and within walking distance.
When biologist Steve Jones was asked which invention has had the biggest impact on the human genome, he nominated the bicycle. Riding a bicycle permitted travel to different villages and towns, and therefore the opportunity to court in a far wider area, broadening the gene pool dramatically.
With the rise of the internet, the whole world is your village. You don't even have to be able to ride a bike, which is, lucky for some people. This leads us to the first option in my quest for true love.
Option 1. Looking for love online.
Online dating is now the second most popular way people meet. The most popular way is, of course, attending illegal cockfights. Sorry, at work.
And there are those who think that meeting new people online will change all our romantic relationships.
If you met your partner via a singles website, it's no longer seen as something to hide. There used to be a real stigma attached to them. So, where did the two of you meet?
Well, it's a funny story. It's a bit, it was online.
A cockfight. We met a legal cockfight.
Some studies claim that as many as 20% of couples now meet online. So, before the show, we asked our studio audience how they'd met their most recent partner.
The figures make chilling reading.
As expected, about 20% of our audience met their partner online, but 3/4 of them don't publicly admit to that.
But more terrifying still were the people who, when asked how they met their partner, ticked the box marked other.
Yes, we have some examples of this otherness that we'd like to share with you. We'll do this anonymously, I think, for everyone's benefit.
Other. The old-fashioned way. Drunk in a bar.
Other. I slept with her best friend.
Other. Spiders.
Other. It is really weird, but it is also really specific, and there is no way you are broadcasting it.
Thank you. Nowadays, millions of people have met their partner online, and yet an odd attitude still persists. There's a curious duality to the advice you get from dating websites.
When you first meet your date, why not ask them funny, cute questions about dressing up their pets as a sweet conversation starter?
But for God's sake, meet them somewhere brightly lit in case they have a meat mallet up their sleeve.
The idea of using a computer to match potential partners first appeared commercially in the mid-1960s with a system called Operation Match. Applicants were charged $3 to be given details of compatible dates based on personal data. This was a service created by a group of male students who wanted to meet more girls themselves. Something I think you might be able to pick up from the questionnaire they developed, which asked things like,
Is extensive sexual activity in preparation for marriage part of growing up? Say yes. Please say yes.
Operation Match was pretty successful, with 90,000 applicants in just 9 months.
But it soon had a rival system aimed at a more sophisticated clientele, Contact, created by an MIT graduate, David Dewan, and run from a room at his grandparents' house. Ladies.
Dewan is one of love's tragic heroes, really. He was so confident about Contact's predictions that he entered his own and his girlfriend's details into the computer. Sure enough, he came up as a possible match. But so did someone else, and she dumped him for the other guy. He told a reporter at the time,
It was very sad, but it proved my system worked. It found her a more compatible guy.
modern internet dating sites can enable you to meet people who share your interests and passions, however niche. Obviously, not all of these interests and passions are suitable for broadcast, but I'm happy to say the following dating sites are all real.
Survivalist singles. Don't face the future alone. And also because some people can be a bit put off by a large collection of firearms.
Clown dating! Everybody loves a clown! Let a clown love you!
Sea captain dating. For sea captains near you, find your first mate. Arr.
It's fair to say the heart wants what it wants. Nobody's inner romantic thoughts and very few people's browser histories stand up to much scrutiny. We're all weirdos on some level. It's just we mostly get to hide that from the world. But technology has changed our access to both the reality and the fantasy. These days, nobody's stuck with the underwear page from Kay's catalogue and a vivid imagination. But where do we draw the line? Is everything okay to look at, provided no one's actually being hurt and it's just a bit, well, weird?
In 2008, Section 63 of the Criminal Justice and Immigration Act made it a criminal offence not just to create, but to consume, i.e. to look at or have on your computer extreme images. It's fair to say that this is a piece of legislation that's had some teething problems.
In 2009, a Welsh bus driver was sent a rude video as a joke by one of his friends. It was a clip of a woman apparently enjoying a passionately close connection with a tiger. The poor guy was prosecuted for just having this clip on his phone in a message. Now, whether or not you think it's fair to hold someone responsible for something sent to them unrequested, you have to feel concern about the well-being of the poor tiger and also the poor woman involved. But what happened during the trial, where the case was largely based on...
No, that's disgusting. Just that poor animal. Whatever are they making that noble beast do?
Was that someone turned up the volume on the video. Apparently, no one had done this before. And this meant that everyone in the court could hear the tiger clearly saying,
"That's great!"
It was a man in an apparently very convincing tiger suit.
People don't always find it easy to be open and honest about their preferences. But in the choices we make when we're online, we are constantly giving information away. So, can this data let us see into the human heart?
People are always saying, if you're on social media, advertisers are watching you, the government is watching you, security services are watching you. But if you're someone I used to go out with, I'm probably watching you. Sorry about that. And it's not a healthy thing. Should I just sit around and wait for previous boyfriends to work their magic and become single again? Or, as I like to call it, an item you have been watching has been relisted. No, I should really get on a dating app and sort myself out. It used to be the case that when you split up with someone, the choice was binary. Either you would say, I'm okay, and try and get on with your life.
I'm going to take up Zumba.
Or you were outside their house with a bush on your head and night vision goggles trying to reconnect. When the person I thought I'd marry married someone else, my immediate reaction was to look up her Twitter. We're all clear on what Twitter is there. It wasn't an act of guerrilla gynecology. And it's not something that brings out a good side of me. I'm not proud of this, but my primary thoughts after reading a few of her tweets were, well, you may have got him, but you've never really got the possessive apostrophe. Websites, on the other hand, use our preferences all the time to introduce us to things they think we'll like. This is a process called collaborative filtering. By looking at what people with similar preferences select, they try to sell us something else.
As you like Helen Keen, you may also end up liking coin spiders, pewter wizards, and, ultimately, much younger women who still have hope in their eyes and who can't spell.
Modern relationships can suffer from a phenomenon known as FOMO, fear of missing out.
FOMO is a fear that other people out there are having a better time than you are, all of them. That there are parties you're not invited to and people you're not going out with. And there's the photographic evidence on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to prove it. Oh, God, my life's awful.
This brings us to option 2 in my quest for true love.
Getting real about wanting to do other people all the time.
Someone who's thought quite a lot about FOMO is Chris Messina. He's a social media pioneer and the man who introduced the hashtag to Twitter.
For less computer-literate listeners, the hashtag is a sort of indexing system that lets you group internet conversations together. You could probably think of it as being like branding a subsection of your oxen or sewing name tags into your animal skins.
Messina says that modern dating apps mean the monogamous relationship is like totally over. He predicts a rise in unconventional relationships, non-monogamy, polyamory.
Polyamory is when you're in a relationship with more than one person and you're honest about it. It's been rebranded. It used to be known as asking for trouble.
Perhaps the only rational response in a world where we're constantly seeing what else we could be having on our smartphones, where apps will hook us up with what we could be having with a simple swipe, is to ditch monogamy.
Hashtag Ikea profit warning. Hashtag sad face.
I think FOMO depends on you believing what you see and read on social media. Everyone on Facebook or Twitter curates their life to some degree. They only use flattering pictures. They tend to mention going to things or listening or watching stuff that makes them look cool. What you don't do online is your real life. If it were, I'd spend my afternoons live tweeting cash in the attic repeats.
Hashtag sobbing, hashtag alone, alone, alone.
But there is another way. Could we weave enjoyable monogamy into the DNA of our descendants? Here we come to option 3 in my quest for true love.
Paradise engineering.
Paradise engineering may sound like a Sunday night show about an uptight central heating technician who bafflingly relocates to Trinidad.
Her Majesty's government have sent me here to recalibrate your boiler. No, I do not want another pina colada.
But paradise engineering is actually an initiative to create humans who do not know suffering, and that includes suffering in love.
Transhumanist and philosopher David Pearce has suggested we might use a delicious cocktail mix of hormones, pharmaceuticals, and genetic engineering to create absolute, unconditional, and uninhibited love for each other.
There's just one tiny detail at the moment.
We don't know how to do it.
There's also the issue of whether that's even desirable. It has to be said, it tends not to come across well in science fiction like Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. One thing you'll notice too, if you Google paradise engineering, all the websites on the subject look a bit like they haven't been updated since 2003.
It's possible they've genetically engineered themselves to feel no sense of anxiety about following web design trends.
But for all we want love, we're not very good at spotting it. In real life, attraction can be a subtle, difficult thing to pinpoint. How can you tell when someone likes you?
Researchers at Stanford University in the US have found that they could program a computer to be better at picking up on flirting than human beings.
For instance, men who think they're flirting tend to do the following.
They ask more questions, laugh more, and use more sexual words, anger words, and negative emotional words, and they speak faster with higher pitch.
So, for future reference, this is a man flirting.
Do you fancy a furious drink sometime with me and your angry breasts?
Studies have repeatedly shown that men tend to overestimate the sexual interest being displayed by women. It's not clear whether the reasons for this are cultural or biological, although I do think it is describing a phenomenon that nearly every person in this room will have experienced at some point in their life, the misplaced confidence caused by alcohol.
Do you fancy a furious drink sometime?
Not if my life depended on it. Not if anyone else's life depended on it either. In fact, quite literally, not if all human life depended on it. If we were so far into the past that we were the only two formed organisms in the primordial soup, and all we had to do was exchange a couple of chromosomes, and from this simple act of reproduction would come forth the first creature that would drag itself onto the land, and from that creature would come all the myriad wonders of life on Earth. And even though back then I would have no conscious thought process that would permit me to experience this as a sexual act, even though life on Earth, possibly the rarest gem in an endless, bleak universe of a billion otherwise lifeless stars, depended on this one tiny exchange of something of me with something of you, I'd still be like, not with a barge pole, mate!
She definitely likes me.
As someone with kind of an academic-y background, I'm largely bewildered by the whole process of people getting together with other people. For starters, the language people use about getting together romantically is geared up for alpha-y, sporty, practical types. Lots of the metaphors for sex come from PE.
Getting your kit off, getting to first base, scoring.
Or very aggressive bouts of DIY.
Banging, nailing. The verb you do with a screwdriver that I'm not sure you can say on the BBC.
I feel that people like me would benefit from euphemisms taken from more bookish sources. Might I suggest?
Luring the basilisk into the Chamber of Secrets.
But the whole process of close contact with other humans is, for the most part, let's face it, revolting.
Sigmund Freud said the man who kisses a pretty girl enthusiastically may well feel disgust about sharing her toothbrush. The quite natural revulsion we feel towards other people and their germ factory bodies, riddled with dirt, disease, and poor dental hygiene, can be dampened by a different type of filth. In a recent study, researchers found that a group of women who had viewed arousing images before being given disgusting tasks to do were less likely to be appalled.
I do like that the list of these disgusting tasks they were given in the name of science includes things like drinking from a cup with an insect in it, wiping their hands with a used tissue, eating a biscuit that was next to a worm, and putting their finger in a tray of used condoms. Yeah, don't use that caterer again.
So let's assume you've met someone, eaten the wormy biscuit of commitment, and plunged your entire arm right up to the elbow into the used prophylactic bowl of a long-term relationship. What comes next?
If you're a prairie vole or you're living in the ancient world, there's a fairly high probability that you'll die soon. But what if you both live?
Modern nutrition and healthcare mean that you potentially have decades of togetherness.
That's decades of stories about how he was once in a band. Decades of hearing about how he met Kylie Minogue and she definitely gave him the eye. Decades of him pushing past you and burrowing into the ground whenever he sees a predator. Oh, sorry, that last one is if you're a prairie vole. I read a Daily Mail article on how to fall in love with your long-term partner all over again. The tagline asked,
"Can you ever recapture the spark when you've been together for decades?"
No.
One of their suggestions for spicing things up and recapturing the erotic frisson of your early relationship, I'm not making this up, was...
Open yourself up to new experiences. Try swapping seats with your partner at the kitchen table.
In our busy modern world, even when we're apart, we can still be together. Which brings us to option 4, enhancing your existing relationship with electronics.
There's something astonishing about the technology that will let us reach out to each other across great distances, that in the blink of an eye can send our words and images across vast oceans and barren deserts and Arctic wastes to loved ones thousands of miles away. And something still more astonishing about the fact that so many people use it to send pictures of themselves in the nuddy.
We're talking, of course, about sexting. Sexting is what's known as a portmanteau word, made up of the words sex and texting, joining love and technology together.
See also the Sinclair ZX Sexstrom and the Photocopophia.
I have to admit, I've never sent a sext. I was in my last relationship for quite a long time, so we actually got together before mobile phones that I could afford were sophisticated enough to have decent cameras. I suppose I could have sent him a fax, but then I'd have had to go and use the machine at the cost cutter.
Sexting via your smartphone can create a sense of intimacy with your partner across the miles. But a study in 2013 found that 1 in 7 people has accidentally sent an intimate message to the wrong person.
Oh, how lovely. It's a message from Helen, John. And, oh, look, there's a photograph. No, my eyes!
But couples can look forward to a future of long-distance feeling as well as feelings. Durex are in the process of developing underwear that you can vibrate using a smartphone app. Surely, one of the advantages of going out with someone who's a long way away is that you don't have to put up with them pawing you all the time. Anyway, they're calling it funderwear. This is fun underwear, yet another sexy portmanteau word.
See also thong-distance relationships.
There's actually also a long-distance kissing device in development to transmit the movements of your mouth over the internet to a partner. And they've tried to name it using another sexy portmanteau, a mixture of kissing and messenger. So they've called it the Kissinger. Many people argue that selling sex has been a major driver for the technological advances of the internet age. Just look at the figures.
An estimated 30% of worldwide internet traffic is pornography. 91 million people are using online dating apps. But, like the time Helen Keen took a road trip across the American West with an orangutan, this may be putting the wrong person in the driver's seat.
I'd say that it's not sex that drives the internet, it's money that drives the internet. And there's a lot of money to be made from sex and love and the fact that people want both and can't always get either. So, is it going to take us into a robot age too?
Finding love. Option 5. Doing it with a robot. There are some who believe that just as the porn industry was an early adopter and adapter of internet technology, when we start to create convincing humanoid robots, they're most likely to be sex bots.
One of the companies at the forefront of this is True Companion. They're the creators of a companion robot called Roxy. Roxy is spelt Roxxxy. Roxy has synthetic skin, 3 inputs, don't ask, and a programmable personality. And according to their advertising, she's
Always turned on and ready to talk or play.
presumably not always turned on unless there's a significant improvement in the life of batteries. But the story behind Roxy is sadder and weirder than you might expect.
Roxy was invented by Doug Hines, who used to work at Bell Laboratories as an artificial intelligence engineer. When his best friend was killed in the September 11th atrocities, Doug promised himself he'd create a program that could store a human personality so that maybe one day he could recreate his best friend. So he built a talking sex robot.
There's something quite moving about that if you look really, really hard.
In conclusion, there are industries that thrive on the fact that we haven't all found the person of our dreams. There are people who feel they've failed or been uniquely unfortunate for not pairing up. Yet, maybe some of us are just not cut out for all this. But in the future, maybe we could be. Literally.
That love is an illusion we create is not a new idea. Peppy early 20th century American journalist and satirist H.L. Mencken said,
To be in love is merely to be in a state of perpetual anesthesia, to mistake an ordinary young man for a Greek god or an ordinary young woman for a goddess.
having written extensively about the grimness of marriage, or as he liked to call it, the end of hope, and the peculiarly devious nature of women, not least the ugly ones who have careers and become suffragettes, Mencken surprised everyone when, aged 50, he succumbed to the anaesthesia himself and fell in love with Professor of English and noted suffragette Sarah Hart. And he was utterly devastated when she died a few years later of TB. For myself, hope springs eternal. The hope that I'll eventually meet someone who makes it all make sense. That's what gets me out of bed in the late afternoon. In the meantime, if experience can be any sort of guide, perhaps we should listen to Jean Rhys. She was a Dominican novelist who began writing after a spell as a chorus girl and demi-mondaine, marrying 3 different men.
We can't all be happy. We can't all be rich. We can't all be lucky. And it would be so much less fun if we were. There must be the dark background to show up the bright colours.
Big Problems with Helen Keen was written by Helen Keen and Miriam Underhill. It was performed by Helen Keen, Peter Serafinowicz and Susy Kane. The producer was Gareth Edwards. It was a BBC Radio comedy production.